What's up, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of Taking a Breath. If you, like me, struggle with a high intensity, high energy workload, or struggle with some of the anxiety, depression side of things, I think you're going to get a lot out of today's episode, and here's why. In today's episode, I talked to Sid Bachher all about meditation, self-reflection, and growth. And the reason that I think it's going to be so important is that we talk about how to manage a high stress load. We talk about self-reflection in terms of organizing things that are on your plate. And so whether you're on either side of those topics, I think today is going to bring a lot of value for you, and I hope you enjoy. Something I wanted to talk a little bit more with you about today is what does that perspective look like? So when you are a little bit more reserved, what are some things that you're seeing? What are some things that you're observing that you might not have been if you were kind of that one jumping right into the conversation?
100%. That's a great question, Parker. One thing that I definitely observe is body language of the people that I'm talking to, or excuse me, I guess I'm not the one talking, but I'm just observing body language when someone else is talking. So I can see and gauge their level of interest, whether they vibe with who's talking. And if I feel there's some sort of disconnect, I can, like I can try to just get my way into the conversation and try to connect those people who are a little bit more disconnected.
Okay.
Another thing that I've realized is I can, and this ties back into the first point that I just made, I can try to elevate people who generally don't talk as much, who have trouble getting into a group conversation. When it's more one-on-one, I try to just take a step back, and most people just love to talk about themselves. So when you give a person a chance to share their experiences about themselves and then are able to remember them at a later date, it can make such an impact. So just actively trying to listen to what a person is saying without the intent to reply goes such a long way in that one-on-one. And a common rule of thumb is you generally want to talk about 20% in a conversation and actively listen about 80%.
I'm curious for you, do you find it easier to be a passive listener or an active participant in the conversation?
Always an active participant.
Okay.
Yeah. Whether it be active listening or active reciprocating, which is that feeling that if someone is telling you something, you're like, yeah, you give those nods of approval, and your body language is very, like you when there's pauses in between, you give like a, yeah, or you try to prompt them, like, how did that make you feel? Ask those prompting questions. Definitely try to be an active participant as much as you can.
I know throughout the year, we talked a lot about your daily routine. We talked about what types of things you're up to. And I remember hearing you talk a lot about meditation. And I know you and I have talked through some of this stuff because I have always found it hard to be someone who takes time to relax, takes time to just be introspective and think about evaluate what types of things I can be improving on. I'm curious, what types of things are you doing, and how often those types of questions for your meditation? Tell us a little bit about kind of what that is to you and what that means to you.
Sure. Yeah. I think before I delve into the meditation topic, I'd like to just give a brief definition, just because it seems like such an abstract thing to really, like, I'm going to try to break it down if I can. And please just interrupt me if something doesn't make sense. I can try to rephrase it in another way. So there's a lot of definitions for meditation, but the one I like to use is consciously taking time out of your day to just sit down and observe your thoughts.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a good analogy would be like an NFL player watching tape on one of their games. You know, when one meditates, they cycle through a lot of thoughts, whether it be the past, present, worries, feelings, and the sort. Just as an NFL player sees what they did and how they can improve in a game. And one can just meditate and understand their thoughts and what they learn from them. So just as exercise improves the body, like the physical body, meditation can help improve the mind. So
I want, there's a couple things I want to ask you about. The first was you mentioned talking about things that stress you out. So you mentioned the example of that you were thinking about the podcast, and during the meditation, you were, as you're thinking about it, you realize prep for it like a presentation notes. When something like that, that's stress, that is a future stress, and maybe you didn't even realize before that it was stressing you out, but then as you're sitting there evaluating, you realize, let's say that something like that happens to someone who this is their first time, they're meditating for their first 5 minutes and realize that something is really stressing them out. What are tips that you would give to overcome that, to really think about it in a way that's going to be productive, like how you did?
right. Um, that's a very good question. It's a very hard question to answer because
Yeah.
everyone is so different. Everyone
that,
handles stress in a very, very different way.
that's true.
So I would say first figure out how you deal with stress.
Okay.
That would be the first step. And if you don't know, it's okay. It's okay. We're all trying to learn. So if you find out something is stressing you, maybe go to a friend or someone you trust for the first time. Excuse me, someone you trust, not for the first time.
Yeah.
Try to go to someone you know for a while, and be like, hey, this has been bothering me. It came up, and I was thinking about it for a little bit, and I was wondering how I could deal with it. And it's okay to ask for help from other individuals you trust. If you're trying to focus on it by yourself, I would say ask yourself more questions. Be like, why am I stressed? Try to figure out the reasoning behind why it's taking up so much of your thought space. And if you hopefully you get to an answer, and if you get to an answer, you can be like, okay, how do I solve this stress?
Okay.
And it's sort of like that, like it's you're sort of going through it logically, where it's like, this is the problem, quote unquote, in a way. This, how can I solve this problem? What is the solution? It's sort of like that scientific method procedure that we all learn in sixth grade, and again and again and again. But anyway,
Yeah.
and if you can't figure out a problem, that I would say that, excuse me, if you can't figure out a solution, then I would say that generally it's a pretty serious thing, and I would highly recommend um, going to an expert for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit out of my scope to answer. But
Yeah, no, that is, and it's good. I like that idea of asking yourself questions, because that is a great concrete step, that if you are sitting just, and you're still in this time, before you've even come out of this time, and you would be interested in coming to a mentor or a leader in your life, just sitting there, and maybe I have a test coming up, or something like that, and I'm stressed about this test. Really evaluating, asking myself questions, have I paid attention in class? Yes, I have. Have I done the reading? Yes, I have. Have I been preparing? Yes, I have. And a lot of times I think, and you can correct me, but if there's something like that that's coming up, a lot of times maybe either you're going to realize that maybe I shouldn't be as stressed as I am about this. For example, the podcast, the example you gave, you realized, I can be prepared and I'm not as stressed as I was. Or you might realize that second example that you gave, that, okay, maybe, this is serious. Maybe I do need to go seek some expert advice and, take that route. But I think that asking those questions and asking the important questions can really break it down for you, whether it's, okay, this is manageable. I realistically, I know what I'm doing and I've got it, versus, if there's something serious and I'm just taking the time to realize, okay, this has a bigger impact on me than I thought it did. I appreciate that perspective of, people aren't going to be thinking as much about you as you think they are. I have a coworker of mine at my internship, Rick Mass, and he always encourages me whenever something goes wrong in an event or something like that, and I'm getting down on myself. He always says that we are our own worst critic, and I think that's really true, is that, you might spend an hour thinking about, oh my gosh, like this went so terribly. It might ruin the whole rest of your day because you're thinking about it. And that person who, you messed up there, whatever, for
10 seconds, they've already moved on and they're productive and they're doing their thing. They're not even thinking about you at all anymore. And so I think that that's really true, is you have to put that in perspective of, okay, is this as big of a deal as I'm making it out to be? Because of a lot of times I think, we are going to make a big deal out of it ourselves, and it's a big deal for nothing. And I think
Yeah.
that's huge. I mean, I always emphasize learning as something that is huge to me. And I think mistakes are definitely, you have to really love. Like, failure is something that is going to grow you, but if you're always concentrated on it, then you can't grow from it. And so I think that it really is about taking the failure, taking the growth from it, and then moving on, because you spend all this time dwelling on it and you're no longer benefiting from it. It's just holding you back from moving forward. And so I definitely think that's a big part of it.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's video highlights. If you're interested in more content, you can check the 2 links in the description. 1, Instagram. Follow us at Taking a Breath Podcast. And 2, our Anchor link is in the description. You can make sure to listen to the full audio version of this episode if you're interested in hearing more. In addition, make sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you again next week.